Welcome to the Ambitious Broker Podcast, where elite real estate professionals share their secrets to success, discuss topics impacting their industry, and gain professional development insights. Enjoy today's episode. Hey everyone, welcome to our third and final segment for our industry series with Rob Hahn, also known as the notorious ROB. Enjoy today's episode.
And if you go back to the days that franchising started, they were a direct reaction. We talked about this: one broker does something, the other broker does something, and the truth is, a franchise started like Art Bartlett started at Century 21. He was a regional manager for the Forrest Olson Company in Orange County, and what happened? You had all these large regional companies, a lot of companies that in those days where you had one owner and 25 offices, and there was a little office in every community everywhere. And so Art Bartlett, who was one of those, says, these regional companies are just killing all the mom and pops. Everybody was, in those days, everything was a 10 or 12 person desk office. That's it. And and all of a sudden, these one man off, these one offices with 12 agents, these small companies, they could never compete. What's interesting today is these small companies today with 12 people and a name nobody knows is competing. It's interesting, actually. So that was what happened then. The franchise came out to say, let's take these large company tools and get them to the little guy. Put them underneath the brand so you have a consumer-facing purpose. Yeah. Okay? Well, it's gone. It's history. No matter what anybody in the world wants to say today, that is history. Now, right. And here's proof that you should try someday. And I've done this probably 100 times now, be it social events. People find out that I'm connected to real estate. We'll start talking about it, and I'll ask them, let me ask you a question. What do you believe are the best 3 real estate companies? Try it.
What are the answers you get? Try
it. You're gonna love your reaction to this thing. And we're so into the industry, we know all the stuff, and all the companies. It's maybe half the time you could get someone who could tell you 3 companies. And if anyone ever thought of being a dominant company, a lot of times that would come out of an individual person who was a great farmer, who was in the neighborhood, and they had a really high percentage of the business in that neighborhood, so they would see that sign creep up over and over and over again. If someone could tell you 2 companies or 3 companies, and I would ask them, what's the difference between that company and that company? And then it dropped to 0. Mm-hmm. So to your point, you said Sotheby's to someone, and they go, oh, that means something. That's brand value. Yeah. That's brand value. So now you're talking about going to EXP, who will probably be the first really nationwide company since probably Merrill Lynch. I don't know if you was aware of Merrill Lynch being the...
I mean, NRT's national. Home Service America's national.
Yeah, but
so there are other national companies.
But nobody thinks of NRT and nobody thinks of Realogy as a... The public doesn't think like that. They think Coldwell Banker, Century 21, and so forth. And all those franchises, none of those are national. You can't really call, in my opinion, you don't call Keller Williams national because they don't have national control. They have offices all over the place, but they can't control the local, although they do as good a job as anybody probably at it. Yeah. But Rex, I'm sorry, but you mentioned EXP, and by George, they actually have a chance to be a nationwide company.
They do, but they're going to suffer the same problem that the other guys do.
Yeah.
Right. So this is something that's so interesting to me. We talk about brand a lot in real estate. Right. And, when I started the whole consulting thing, I came out of marketing and brand. Right. And the way I look at it is there's very little brand sort of management in real estate. Right. And here's what I mean by that. People think brand in real estate is like your color of your sign or your logo.
Right.
I'm like, that's not brand. Brand is brand is a promise that you make to consumers.
Exactly.
Right? That you're going to get this level of service, this type of good, this quality of whatever. And you got to live up to that promise. And as long as you have 1099s, I don't know how you do that.
I don't either. I've only
So I'll give you
I've
an
only
I'll give you an
studied this
example,
for
because I just
46
had this
years,
happen to me.
and I don't know either. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example, and I think it's something people can relate to. My wife, we just got her a new to us, because we don't buy new cars. We bought a Porsche, right? So we walk into a Porsche dealership for service, right? And I gotta tell you, it's a different experience than walking into a Hyundai dealership or a Toyota dealership. It just is. And they spend a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of training, a lot of discipline with their staff, with their office located, with the look and feel of it to reinforce that brand, right?
Right.
You could walk into, even a Sotheby's, you could walk into a Sotheby's office and get a very different experience depending on which agent you end up with.
That's right.
Think about that.
You're
right?
absolutely right.
So from a brokerage standpoint, and you care about your brand, you got to think about, how am I enforcing this brand? And a corollary immediate question after that has to be, the worst agent in my office, the crappiest, most unethical agent in my office is my brand.
That's right.
That's my brand ambassador.
That's right.
What are you doing about that?
That's right.
Right? So it's that kind of stuff.
No, you're absolutely right. And God, I'm thrilled to hear you say this, because this is the conversation I have all the time. And to your point earlier, we said, well, NAR needs to focus on their standards. They need to focus on the code of ethics. They need to narrow it down. They need to enforce. And that's exactly the reason they need to enforce that when you don't enforce I loved your term, and I use the same term, the promise. What is your brand promise? Mm-hmm. Because if you can't deliver some consistency to a consumer, you don't have a brand. If you say Starbucks, I can walk into your place in Vegas or next door to my office here in, say, Studio City, and you feel mm-hmm. the same thing. They deliver the same experience. That's brand.
And hold on. And here's the thing. If you have a bad experience, if you have an off-brand experience,
right,
you complain to the manager, right? And something happens.
Right.
You complain to corporate and something happens.
Right.
So
if a new association were to pop up, then wouldn't your advice be to them? Because it would be mine. It would be, focus on maintaining your promise.
Yeah.
Focus on maintaining your promise. And if you do that and you grow that way, and all your management is about that, NAR doesn't deliver on their promise anymore. And the real estate companies can't make a promise anymore because of your point.
Well, I think NAR has a much deeper problem, though, right? Which is that their promise itself, they don't make any promises. Right. It's something that you and I discussed when I was doing strat planning for SRAR, right? Which is, I remember going through your board of directors and asking them, what exactly does a code of ethics require of a realtor that the state of California does not of a licensee?
Right.
And the answer was nothing.
Right.
Well, that's a problem, right? So I think NAR's problem is deeper than that. I think NAR actually has to start by making promises to consumers that goes above and beyond what the law requires. Right?
That's right.
And I remember in our strat planning, I used an example, just as an example, maybe realtors are required to use professional photography, right? Because the law doesn't require that, right?
Right.
Or something. Maybe realtors are required to,
dress,
drive nice luxury vehicles. Whatever it is, but it has to be something more than what the law requires.
And you know what?
If it's just what the law requires,
you're absolutely
what's
right.
the problem?
Then what you're talking about is your minimum. I loved I'll never forget. I've used your Costco card a lot. I got a Costco card. I got a realtor card. And what does it mean? Because to your point, you said it best, I think, and that is that your brand is the lowest the lowest performer in your organization. That's who your brand. That's what you represent. And I really feel like if there's going to be a new association out there, it should be those top people. Those top people in these organizations should just flat out say, I will no longer endorse this kind of behavior. I will no longer endorse this. I'm going to go on my own. I don't want to be called Coa Banker, Century 21ers, or Keller Williams. I need to have a chance to have a promise that can be met.
Yeah. Yeah. and this is where some of your audience is going to get absolutely freaked out, but it's just the truth, right? And this is a trend that started years ago. There is a brand today that does mean that does have a consumer promise, right? And it's becoming more and more popular within the industry.
Zillow?
Right? Zillow Premier Agent.
Yeah.
Right. And it was like maybe 3 years ago, I started seeing agents' email signatures have in it Zillow Premier Agent.
Right.
And I said, okay, this is a line that has been crossed, and we're going to see more and more of that.
Yep.
Because again, they enforce their brand, right?
Yeah.
And
Imagine being at Century 21 as an agent today, and you own the Century 21 office.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you see one of your agents that their email signature says a Coldwell Premier Agent. Because Zillow is that now, right?
Yeah.
Zillow's a company now.
Not yet.
Well, they're going to be. I mean, they're licensed in every state now, right?
So. I don't think so, Roger. I think Zillow only goes that route if they're forced to.
Well, forced by whom? I saw your "Don't Rattle the Bear" article or something like that you wrote.
Yeah, forced by the industry, right? If the rest of the industry, keeps fucking with them, then of course they're not going to just lay down. They're going to do whatever they have to fight back. But
yeah, but you understand. I don't think the industry, unfortunately, the industry in my mind hasn't screwed with them enough. I mean, they should.
I guess we have to find out if the industry keeps screwing with them, right?
Well, I think it's more. I don't know what you think about this, but I think it's more their Zillow's inability to find something that works well. I think like Redfin, I think they're experimenting every way they can to try to find a way to make some money. How do we get a bottom line here? And
I don't know, Roger. They made $1 billion in the last 9 months.
Well, through I don't think they profited that. I think you're talking about.
Oh no, they generated $170 million in profit.
First time in history.
I mean, okay.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So the point I'm making is that as they keep changing, they keep morphing, they keep things. You see, Redfin's doing the same thing. Redfin's they've got to find
Roger,
their model.
So this is where you thrash me. All I can say about that is I think that is a fundamental misunderstanding of how those companies work, right? Fact of the matter is that Zillow's IMT division, which is the Premier Agent stuff, did over $1 billion in revenues in 9 months. I think they end the year with probably 1.2, 1.3 billion in revenues, and they made $170 million in net profit out of that division. Then they took all that profit and dumped it into like technology, dumped it into homes, they dumped it into these other things that they're doing. Sure. Redfin, same thing. If you look at their numbers, their gross profit margin is like 35%.
Yes.
Right. And then they take that profit and dump it into technology, dump it into these other things.
Right.
To me, it's like if Redfin just wanted to start making profits, they can anytime. Right. Zillow made profits for the first time because they decided we need to start taking some profits, out of IMT. Right.
Well, if they're going to continue to raise money, I mean, they also just recently raised $1 billion, right?
Sure.
Right.
And why wouldn't you if you can get it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like, it's not, that's just the wrong way of looking at it. Now, here's where Zillow, Redfin, all these guys are losing money. They're losing money with some of this new stuff that they're trying, right? Like Zillow Homes and Redfin Now and, some of these experimental sort of new lines of business. They're still losing money. No question about it.
Right.
Right. And they'll keep losing money for a while there. But on the fundamental basics that they've been doing for 10, 11 years, they're fine. They are absolutely fine. So think of it this way. Imagine Redfin took just the brokerage piece, right? And spun it off. It would make a shit ton of money. If Zillow just took the Premier Agent piece and spun it off.
But you see, here's what all companies are struggling for, even to have some value to their agents. And that is, how do I deliver something of value? And in the case of the Redfins, in the case of the Zillows, these guys, they're delivering leads.
Yes.
By the way, when I was spending $60,000 a month or more in newspaper advertising, that's what I did. I delivered leads.
That's right.
You see? And so that's the jumbo challenge there. And so how do you morph from the person who can generate leads into a profitable real estate company, as opposed to a guy who's run a real estate company trying to figure a way to generate leads for his people? We call those teams, I think.
Yeah,
is what we call them. So
the answer is in teams. The answer is in W-2. The answer is in those types of things, because there's no other way.
And you think the answer is that because of the control and organization you can get to move a lot of people in one direction? Is that?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I feel like with real estate, the fundamental is whoever controls the leads controls everything.
Right.
So if you don't control the leads, then you're screwed. Then you're working for whoever does control the leads.
Well, I know Keller Williams has been talking about their big tech, and
yep.
I love Gary Keller's tech agent or agent for tech or some kind of interesting little thing.
Tech-enabled agent.
Tech-enabled agent. Can you see? You had a line that I think was a good line in one of them. You said something like, "I think agents need to understand they need to hold on to their clients like with iron talons or iron claws or something to that effect." I don't know if you remember the remark.
I don't remember that line, but it's true. I mean, but again, it just goes back to whoever controls the lead. So think about Keller Williams and their tech-enabled agent, right?
Yes.
Okay, fine. You've enabled your agents with all this wonderful tech and CRM and all this stuff. Great. Who generates the lead? The agent does.
Yes.
Okay, then who works for who?
Right. Yeah. And here again, it's
Keller Williams works for that agent.
Yeah.
The broker works for that agent.
I look at these guys today and I think this is interesting because I think but if not, I had the first. I invented the CRM system for real estate back in the 80s, and I remember the challenge to get people to collectively use these great tools. It's very, very difficult. Very difficult. And when you have a franchise that you're trying to make that happen within, it's impossible. I don't care how much you plead and jump up and down. And then when 70% of your membership is the lower end of the market and they don't have, when I do my consulting with real estate companies, one of the things I tell owners is that I have a bunch of rules for management, but one of them is that you can't solve a problem someone doesn't have. So,
right.
You're not going to take someone who wants to do 2 sales a year and get them to become, masters of the CRM system and so forth. So so obviously those guys would love to be in a position of generating leads.
Yep.
How does a Keller Williams or a Realogy, Berkshire Hathaway, any of these guys, how do they get into a lead gen competitiveness? How can they do that?
You're going to hate the answer. You're going to hate the answer, Roger.
I'm loving it so far.
What's that?
I said, I'm loving it so far. I promised to get you out of here in less than 15 minutes, so we got to...
Yeah. The answer is they have to kill the MLS.
They have to kill the MLS.
Yeah. Because here's the thing, right? There is an industry, there are a bunch of real estate companies where the brand is still incredibly meaningful when they still control the bulk of the economics.
Right.
And those brands, I can name 3 of them right off the top of my head. They are CBRE, Jones Lang LaSalle, Cushman Wakefield.
All commercial.
Exactly.
Right.
Because, in commercial, it makes a difference when you're an agent. Even if you're a 1099 independent contractor, when you're an agent and you call up a building owner, if you call up some guy who owns a law firm and you say, I am Rob calling from CB Richard Ellis, CBRE, versus saying, I'm Rob calling from Joe Schmo Real Estate.
Right.
That name makes a difference. Why? Because CBRE has resources, it has data, it has research, it has all of this stuff.
That's right.
Right. That name carries weight.
Yes. And I think you hit on a little bit of what's going to be important. If they can't, if these brokerages, and it's going to take a big brokerage to do it probably, but a big brokerage can't start to put a little bit of that resource together that in fact their agents will use. Not just to say I've got resource, but that's something that you can actually implement. I think that's probably at the heart of some of their future if they're not successful with it,
But the problem with that right now, though, in 2020 is that, as much as they might want to say, so let's say I'm, Realogy, let's say I'm home service. And I say, okay, screw this. I'm going to go the commercial real estate route. I'm leaving the MLS. I'm leaving NAR. I'm leaving all that. I'm just going to go do my own thing. Like that Olson, that company you mentioned, right?
Yeah, it's Forrest Olson, yeah.
Forrest Olson. The problem is you now have to fight against 30 or 40 years, right, of agent-centric models in which you don't generate any leads.
Yes.
So when it comes down to it, so take home services as an example, right? Giant company, right? We'd agree. They're huge. They're number 2.
Right.
They're national. They're all this and that some, right?
Multi-brand.
What?
They're multi-brand organizations.
Yeah, but here's what I believe. I think if home services or any real estate company today, and no matter how large, if they lost top 10% of their agents, they're no longer viable.
That's correct.
So how do you do that and keep the top 10% of your agents unless they too want to say, screw the MLS? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's possible. And if you don't do that, and here's the thing, here's the flip side. The flip side, it's not like those top 10% agents are morons, right? They're smart people. They're really great business people. They're going to look at this and say, okay, my broker is leaving because they want to set up and they want to be the lead generator, just like it is in commercial. Why am I going along with that? Why would I ever go along with that? Because right now I'm at a 95-5 split.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, brokers just got themselves in a hole. What happens is I think the agents have got to be, there's got to find some way that they can get educated to the things that you and I are talking about. If the agents really understand how this is costing them, they think that they're immune to all this, that they're somehow separate from the brokerage's problems, but they're not.
But they are though, Roger. I mean, how are they susceptible to any of it?
Well, because they're as the brokerage goes, as an example, when the brokerage can't put back and reinvest in models, okay?
Yeah.
You start to create a void. The truth of the matter is the public thinks nothing of realtors anymore. Not that it was always great, but they think less of realtors. And in the process of doing so is where they create the void that brings the disruptors into our world. Okay, we didn't have a problem. So as an agent deals with the commission starting to decline, as agents deal with new models coming in that become disruptive to them, you'd mentioned Rexes earlier, and there'll be others. When these companies are hiring so much of this lower end of the real estate market, the guys at the lower end of the market are the ones who don't believe in their own value. They're the ones that are giving commission away. So any agent that's with these brokerages, they think they may be immune to it, but they're not. They're in this sinking boat, and it's affecting them. And the guys on the teams and some of these big producers today are just so good that they can keep overcoming it. But the normal average everyday, I personally believe that we've reached the point in real estate where we've lost the middle class. In real estate.
Sure.
Middle class is gone. So I think that agents have got to get educated. They got to understand so that they will go along with some of the things that brokerage companies will need to do to pull out of the tailspin.
Yeah, except that, again, are we at a point where do they even matter? Like I said, if you're a large brokerage and you lost the bottom half of your agent pool, I don't think that affects your standing much. I don't think it affects your market share that much. If you lost the top 10%, you just lost 40% market share.
Yes.
So what that says to me is the top 10% are in control of everything. And those bottom half, if they can't compete with the top 10%, guess what? You have a choice. You can come work for me, or you could leave the business.
Right.
Go drive Uber. I mean, that if that's the choice,
well, that's
what happens.
It happens. Right. People forget that we turn over 15%, half of every year. Half of everybody in the real estate business today is less than 5 years in the business. So, It's this churn.
So let's bring it all back to the first thing that I said, which is the biggest trend, the thing that no one's really paid a lot of attention to, but I have for the last couple of years, is the biggest trend in real estate is the teams are taking over.
Yeah.
It's that simple. Everything else. And here's the thing, the disruptors and all that, the disruptors know that they can't disrupt the great agent. And they don't even want to. And you'll hear everybody say this, like, there's no replacing a great agent. Somebody who's really expert, really knows how to connect with their clients.
Oh, yeah.
Knows the local market, and just knows the transaction inside and out, and can really be that expert guide. Like, there's no replacing that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I would use an agent, like, and I know everything. Yeah. You and I both know, but boy, if I'm selling my house, I want to find that agent who's amazing, right?
Exactly.
And just make my life easier and help me navigate the craziness and deal with all my problems. Like, of course I would hire that agent. Of course I would pay that agent. Right?
And so, the real estate business. So you're a consumer today. And what we know is we can't count on a brand to make you feel that way. Right?
That's correct.
So
that's correct.
And that's what you need. You need a brand to help you feel that way. An individual person who is a great person buried in the middle of a bunch of people who aren't, certainly isn't helping your case. So if you're a consumer, how do you find that person with confidence?
That's going to be, I think what ends up happening is that the teams become brands, right? Like, to me, Redfin is a team, right? Redfin is a brand.
Yeah.
Rex, I've used Rex. Rex helped me buy the house I'm sitting in right now. And they're a brand. They have W-2 employees. And I felt like, okay, I'm not going with a particular agent at Rex. I'm going with Rex Company. And in fact, this ended up working out. Wow. I'll tell you a quick story because I got to go soon.
Yeah.
When we were buying this house, it was like right at the start of the COVID thing. Right.
Right.
And we start working with an agent, right? Just showing us houses because, we know our stuff. Like, my wife is a recovering broker, right? So we didn't really feel like we needed that to buy a house, to sell, maybe to buy. Yeah. Anyway, like 3 weeks into this, she gets laid off. She's just gone, right? In any other normal real estate brokerage situation, if your agent is gone, what happens? Right? You have to spend a bunch of time talking to your new agent, and here's what we've done. Here's the houses we looked at. Here's, have that conversation all over again. Right.
Right.
With this, literally the next day we get a call from a different agent. Okay. I have your file. I know every house you've looked at. I know all the things you've done. I know your needs. I know everything about you, because the relationship isn't with, Susie who left. It's with the company.
Right.
And here's the thing. This isn't about Rex, because that also happens in teams.
Yes.
If you are working with a big enough team and you're working with one of their team member buyer agents, whatever, and that buyer agent gets sick, goes on vacation, whatever, somebody on that team steps right in and just continues to service the client.
Right.
Which is why I think ultimately what we're going to see is that teams become brands. And right there in California, you have an example of a company that's doing that, which is Side Real Estate, right? They're a brokerage, but really they're functioning more and more like a franchise, right?
Right.
So the discipline, the brand, all of this, I think ultimately come from these super teams eventually.
I think what we're saying as we wrap up here is that the future is going to be people who can deliver a service to a consumer, and that agents are going to have to get comfortable being part of a unit of some sort.
Yep.
Whether it be a company who gets our W-2, like say a Redfin, and can get agents to move a single direction so that their brand has value, or a team, to your point, who can deliver that. Although that team the team will have a problem delivering a distinction if they're wearing a Keller Williams hat and the Rob Hahn team,
No, Roger, because nobody ever talks about the Keller Williams hat. It's just legally required.
Right.
But in all their communication and all of their marketing, everything is about the team.
Right. Right.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is that our legal system, licensing law, all of that is behind the times, which is not unusual. That's normally what happens. the reality of real estate practice today, I think, is all about these teams and how they're delivering consumer experience and service.
Yep.
Right. So I think it's just a matter of time, really. Right.
All right. Listen, we're getting near the bewitching hour here, and listen, I enjoyed it. It was good to catch up to you again, and I thank you for taking your time and charging me only 5 cents an hour in consulting, which is great. And
below minimum wage.
so much appreciate that you did. If I can ever help you, please let me know. We'll find a way to give you a little pitch here, but real quickly, Notorious ROB. What's the website?
Sir.
What's the website?
They should just Google Notorious ROB. They'll find me.
Okay, so Google that, find him. The guy's got some great stuff writing. And in wrapping up, thank you, Rob. Really appreciate it, and we'll.
Roger, it's always a pleasure.
All right, my friend. Take care.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Ambitious Broker Podcast, where elite real estate professionals share their secrets to success, discuss topics impacting their industry, and gain professional development insights. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please rate it and leave a review.